I graduated in dentistry, and I wasn't too sure where I should go to Beth Shalom or Beth Israel. Now, the Beth Shalom is the conservative synagogue, and Beth Israel is the Orthodox synagogue. I attended the Beth Shalom, and I attended a few services there, and I went to Beth Israel. And while I was there, Hirsch Buchhalter said to me, you know, I would like to form a Mr. and Mrs. Club, for young married couples. And he said, well, nobody wants to do it. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So that's how I got started in the Beth Israel. We formed a Mr. and Mrs. Club. We had a lot of young fellows volunteered with me to help out. So for every Yontif, we had a party. We had the sisterhood working with us, and they prepare the food, and we'd help out. And for a whole year, everybody was celebrating for every holiday. And then I gave it over at that point, and someone else took over. And needless to say, it didn't continue. There's a lot of work. In fact, halfway through, I said, Miriam, that's my wife's name, Miriam, I don't think I can do this anymore. She said, we took a job, you got to finish it. She was a real disciplinarian. So I did. And everyone had a good time for that year anyway. And one of the older members of Beth Israel told me, you know, someday you're going to become president here. And I said, oh, yeah. Well, guess what? It happened. I ended up being a president in about 1968. And I've been a member of the Beth Israel for many, many years on the chairman of the board of trustees. And I was on the executive many, many years. Well, I was practicing dentistry, and a friend of mine, Dr. Mel Tasky, said, I'm representing dentistry on the alumni council, and I'm letting that go right now. How'd you like to take my place? Well, I'm a nice guy. I can't say no to Mel. So, okay. So I took his place on the alumni council. Now, I don't know if you know what the alumni council is. It's a council with representatives from all the faculties of the University of Alberta: medicine, dentistry, engineering, education. Every faculty has a representative there. And so I was there, and Alec Markle was the executive director of the alumni council. And after 2 years, he said, Burton, how would you like to run for vice president of the alumni council? And Alex was a very, very nice friend of mine, and I couldn't say no to him. So I said, okay. There was someone opposite me running for the position also. He had run the year before, and normally that person that runs the year before wins, and the other one, which would have been me, gets in the next year. Well, guess what? I won. I became the vice president of the General Alumni Association. And after that, the next year, I became president of the General Alumni Association. I'm so proud of the fact that year when I was president of the Alumni Association, Dr. Meyer Horowitz was the president of the university, a Jewish president of the University of Alberta. Yeah. So I'm very proud of some of the accomplishments I made because I was there as president of the Alumni Association. One of them was that I received a letter from the Board of Governors. That's before I was on the Board of Governors. I was president at that time. They were going to tear down Synagogue Hall and Athabasca Hall. So let me explain what that's all about. There are 3 residences at that time. One for ladies called Pembina Hall, a Synagogue Hall for men, and Athabasca Hall for men. And the 2 men's residences were run down. Ladies, apparently, they weren't run down as bad. They were going to keep that residence. And I, in my position, said, well, I stayed at Athabasca Hall, and we have attachment to that building. I'd like to see if we can't keep it. So what they did do is they tore out the insides and rebuilt it. And now we have those 3 of Pembina Hall, Synagogue Hall, Athabasca Hall, side by side, and they formed what they call the Alumni Walk. So they have now a Alumni Walk which goes through into the campus. And that's because we saved that space. So at the university, I enjoyed my time there, and they don't forget the old past presidents. I'm one of the oldest ones left alive, I think. So when they have Christmas parties and other functions, I'm always invited. And another thing, because I was on the Senate of the university, I don't think I mentioned that. When I became president of the University of the Alumni Council, I was ex officio on Senate of the university. And when I was representing the Alumni Council, dentistry on the Alumni Council, I was also on Senate. So I was responsible for selecting helping Gene Forrest get selected as a chancellor of the university. So I had some input while I was at the university. I was in fact, I think I was only a second. Tevi Mueller was a president of the General Alumni Association, and I was the second one. And Meyer Horowitz was the president of the University of Alberta, and we had another president before him also. I was very active in B'nai B'rith, and we used to have our own meetings. And I was active with Ms. Rafi. But we were very strong Zionists in Berryville. We supported Israel. So in my background, I was always active in any cause involving Israel. Ms. Rafi and after the synagogue, I was on the Senate, I have the honor of being able to go up to head platform. So when any convocation came along, I was invited. I'm invited to all the convocations. So when my son Mark graduated from law, I was head platform and shook his hands as he went across the stage. And my daughter Heather graduated in education. I was there to shake her hand when she went across the stage. And my grandson Tal, when he graduated, I was there for him too. So I can attend, if anybody knows that's graduating, I can be at head platform. When all the professors and deans march up the front stage, I can be with them. And now that I'm so much a senior age and it's not left, I get pretty close to the president and the chancellor. I went to Hawaii for 35 years. We had our own condo in Hawaii on the 26th floor of the Waikiki Banyan. And I was home away from home for eventually for 2 months. And because of my wife's condition, she couldn't go anymore. My wife developed a condition called Lewy body dementia. So they say that with that kind of condition, you can only last for about 3 years. But when Miriam was in the Capitol Care Linwood, I played the piano for her every day for 7 years, and from 4 to 5. And I had somebody with her from 9 to 12, and 5 to 9, and my share was from 2 to 5. I entertained her every day, and even when we had COVID here, I had my son Mark, thank you Mark, got me an iPad, and my daughter got me a proper iPhone. So I got Spotify, and I could play music for Miriam, that she could hear all kinds of Jewish songs, and she would have trouble eating. So I would play songs for her, and depending on her mood would depend the kind of music I would play for her. And so it kept her going for 8 years. She just passed away the last day of Hanukkah, like the Hanukkah miracle. She lasted till the last day of Hanukkah. And my daughter Shalan stayed with her for almost 2 weeks to be with her. So she knew she was well loved. Actually, I was actually living with Risa for a little while. And when I was having my 60th, what was it? What a big function, our 65th anniversary, or no, 90th birthday. That's what it was. For my 90th birthday, I was going to have a real bash. I was going to I invite all the congregants from the Beth Israel. We were having about 125, 150 people from family and visitors coming in. We're going to have about 250 for a lunch on Shabbos at the Beth Israel. And we're going to have Friday night supper at the Beth Israel. We're going to have a brunch at the Fantasyland Hotel. So all the family were prepared to come in for our big simcha. And Heather came in from Israel with 2 children, with Avi, who's now in the Israeli army, and with Liat. And so they moved into the house, and Tal came back, and he was in the house. So when Risa's husband had to have surgery on his knees, it wasn't convenient for me to be there. So that's when I moved here into the OPH. I've got a very nice condo on the 7th floor, looking out on 101st Street towards Jasper, 119th Street at Jasper. And we can have kosher meals here, which is significant. And they recently sold the building to Rivera, and they're keeping up the kosher meals. Whoever wants kosher meals can have it. They've got all kinds of programs, and I started a program of Jewish music on Sunday. I don't have very much attendance, but I have a few. And I'm going to play the piano for them they have a Thursday, they have an hour where you can have a drink and entertainment. Before, I would always come to be at Bliss Baked Goods with Miriam, with Sherland. I'd be there from about 5 o'clock to 7:30, and she'd always have me there. It was comforting because I was there, and we'd go leave at the same time. But after I moved into the OPH, I wasn't there anymore. But now we have our grandson, Tal. Tal stays now with Sherland. And you're talking about food. I get kosher meals 5 days a week for suppers. And Sherland provides me with suppers for Saturday and Sunday. And now I've been going to their house also for suppers on the weekends. So I'm getting fat. I've got so much food. And of course, those pastries, as you know, they're so good. But they also prepare a lot of good food as well. I was on the board of the Jewish Shopping Center for many years. And I was involved in them quite extensively. But after in the last few years, I haven't been as active anymore in the drop-in center. We have a real wonderful program going at the drop-in center. We had a lady called Bajina, and she was wonderful as a cook. And she cooked very good meals. And for every holiday that came along, we had good attendance. In fact, we would have some plays that our group. I was in the choir at the drop-in center. Talking about choir, I was in the original choir of the Beth Israel Synagogue, and I was in the choir at the Beth Israel, of course, and I was the choir at the drop-in center for many years. So I was active at the drop-in center, but the last few years, not so much. When they came to ask me to be an honoree, I said, oh, surely you can find somebody more worthy of the honor. And no, we want you. Well, guess what? They had a fantastic turnout. I'm a candy man. I forgot to tell you that on Shabbos in the synagogue, I was giving out chocolate kisses to all the congregants. I started only with a smaller group of men, friends of mine. And then Dr. Beck wrote a poem about me, the candy man, in the Beth Israel Bulletin. So the secret was out. Everybody knew I was a candy man. So all the men that came to synagogue from then on, they all got a handshake and a kiss from me. And then there were also a few ladies, special ladies, that I also gave some chocolate kisses to. So so when I had the Negev Gala, I had a lot of people, maybe they felt that since I gave them all those kisses, they're going to come and honor me. We had a real good turnout. And also I said, why don't we have the gala, Negev Gala party at the Beth Israel Synagogue? And that was the first time they did that. And it turned out a real success. We have in the Beth Israel Synagogue, we've got a real nice dining hall. And we had a wonderful function there. But they asked what would I like to have my choice for my being an honoree of the Negev Gala. And I chose rebuilder of the Jerusalem wall. So they raised a lot of money to help to reconstruct the Jerusalem wall. And they have a plaque in Israel of all the donors. And my children that have been there have seen that plaque. So my name is in Israel. I have a connection to Jerusalem now. My name is on the wall. I'm Jerusalem. I think maybe Hashem is looking down on me from there. Yeah. And I met Miriam and I said, I want to date with you every Saturday night, if that's okay. A steady date because that's a Saturday off. And she agreed. So all the other Jewish boys were trying to date her on a Saturday night, but she wouldn't go because she agreed to go with me, which was my lucky day. And in those days, we used to have a dance, a Yom Kippur dance. After Yom Kippur services at the Beth Shalom, they would have a dance. So I didn't ask Miriam to come with me to the dance, And this lady, Mrs. Spivako, that's the house where she was living in, asked me when I came for a date, who are you taking to the Yom Kippur dance? I says, Miriam, of course. I thought that's a silly question. Well, Mrs. Spivako had got Miriam all dressed up. She didn't know I was going if I was taking to the dance. And she got nice shoes and a nice dress. And there's another fellow staying in the house. He was hoping I wasn't going to take her because he would like to take Miriam to the dance. I'm getting along the sideline. But anyway, we had a nice dance. And I've enjoyed my life with Miriam. We're married 65 years. 65 years. And we have a letter from the Queen of England. Thanks, my son Mark. He sent a letter out to England for certificate for 65 years of marriage. So I have that certificate, and also from the Premier and Prime Minister. So I have souvenirs of 65 years. So Miriam lasted just another 3 months after her 65th anniversary. She passed away the last day of Hanukkah. I'll tell you a story. When I turned 83, Rabbi Friedman says to me, Bernie, you should have a second bar mitzvah. I said, how can I have a second bar mitzvah? He said, well, if you live 70 years of age, you're guaranteed good health to be to 70. If you live another 13 years, then you qualify for a second bar mitzvah. Oh, well, but I'm not that smart. I don't know. I didn't know Hebrew that well. Well, they said, show me how well you know your Hebrew. So I read something in the book, in the siddur, and he said, oh, that's level of Talmud Torah. So I said, oh, I don't think I can do it. Well, my grandson, that's Shalan's son, Shmuel. By the way, Shmuel's in Israel right now, and he's going to yeshiva. And he is 6'3". He's a big boy, and he's a very smart one too. He's been in charge in the yeshiva where he was of the kitchen, and he would do the Torah reading. Responsible to make sure the Torah reading was done every Shabbos. And if there was no one there to do it, he did it. Can you imagine doing that? Knowing all the Haftorahs? Amazing. So anyway, he said, I can do the Haftorah for you for your bar mitzvah. And Tal said, I'll find the melody for your doing the melody for your prayers. So I had the melody. He put it on my computer. So for 2 months while I was in Hawaii, I was studying the nusach, the melody for the prayers before and after the reading of the maftir. So guess what? I told Rabbi Friedman, yes, thank you very much. I'll have a second bar mitzvah. And I did. So I had a second bar mitzvah, and we had a big turnout for the Beth Israel, and we all celebrated. Rabbi Friedman was a good friend of mine, and I surprised him. In fact, Shmuel said to me, Guseda, I'm very proud of you. I couldn't have done any better myself.